Okay, in this lesson we're going to talk about balancing the figure. We're going to add that to what we did on the previous day, which was to make sure we got the right proportions. So now we're going to add one more thing to those proportion drawings, and that thing we're going to add is balancing the figure. For this, it would be really helpful to have a chopstick or another pencil or a paintbrush, something long and thin like that, and I'm going to use my Derwent drawing pencil. Nice long point again, and let's get started. Okay, we're still going to start off the same way that we did before. We're going to mark off the page, top of the head to the ankle, midpoint. Check it if you want to. It's really close. That's good. I want my hip bones to be right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the head and neck. And what I like to do is just block in a light little gesture. He's really pulling those eggs way off to the side here. So I want that egg, that bottom egg, to fall right through the greater trochanter. It's not the greater trochanter isn't at the bottom of the egg. It's more towards just maybe a third of the way from the bottom, let's say. Now, the widest point of the hip here, right there, that's the greater trochanter. Okay, so I made it a little darker just so you can see, but let's come back up here. Top of the egg goes right through his neck. Okay, so I want the legs to come down gesturally. I want this one to come out a little bit and then down and back. Okay, now we're going to do the balance line. It's a good time for the balance line. This is a frontal view, so it's easy to see where that balance line should come from. It should come from the pit of the neck right here. Okay, so it's really easy to see on Barry. Actually the manubrium of the sternum is right there. So that's your landmark. I take my chopstick and put it on the model and start with a very vertical line. Your sketchbook exercises are going to help you to know what you're doing there. So you're going to come right through in the bottom, and it's going to end up at his left ankle over here, this vertical line. Now you have to be really good at, or pretty good at drawing a vertical line instead of a diagonal line if you're going to get it to balance. Okay, so I want that line to start right here from the pit of the neck, go straight down. I want it to end up at the ankle, his left ankle, the ankle on the right side of the photograph. Okay, and then I can come back in and start working around, because I know it's going to be balanced now. There's other things that it passed through, middle of the chest, maybe a little bit over from the middle of the chest, right about there. So that would be his pectoralis right there. What else did it pass through? The side of his groin over here. Okay. So continue on. Now that you've got that balance line, you can start to contour the form. You probably have about 3-4 more minutes. Or we can add a little bit more time to this, since there's a little bit of time spent on getting that balance line. But take your time. A little bit of foreshortening here. We're not going to worry too much about the hand. Just block it in for now. Come on back to the figure. Rib cage, come around. Get that midline. This is your balance line. It's not the midline. The midline's over here. It's going to bring that navel with it. Other rib cage, other pectoralis coming across. Wideness of the hip here. Modifying, that's my gesture drawing underneath. Draw very lightly at first, and then you can come back in with a stronger contour line. Knee. Weighted line. Don't make your line all the same everywhere. Okay. Angle of the foot, groin. This is the widest point of the hip again, the greater trochanter. The narrowest part on this side, because he's cutting it in. He's pulling his weight over here on a contrapposto pose, right? and that's how you're going to balance your figures. It's only a real quick line, vertical line at the beginning, but check on your model first before you draw a structure. Okay? All right, let's do another one. Okay, what happens when you can't see the pit of his neck? Well, on a side view like this, use the front of the ear. So I've done my head, I've marked off my page. Drawn in your head, you always want to start with the head because that's where the balance line is going to come from. So if you go straight down to the ground and then put your chopstick on Barry, you're going to see that it goes almost directly through where his hip bone should be. His hip bone's just a little bit to the right of that balance line, that vertical, imaginary vertical line, and it runs through the calf, just not quite on the edge of the front calf, but just a little bit through the middle of the calf, okay? And then it ends on his heel. So we want his heel, his right heel to end right there, okay? So then I can come back in. Now that I know where the balance line is, now that I have the right proportions, I can start filling in the drawing. So you've seen me do this drawing before for the contour line drawing. Let's see if we can make it a little bit stronger, a little bit better. Again, shoulders, overlap, spine right into the butt. He's twisting his torso, upper torso, a little bit more towards us, twisting the torso, lower torso, butt back a little bit. So you can see that because you lost most of the other side of the butt, so you know that. Okay, come back into the arm. Deltoid. Triceps. A little bit of the overlap because you can barely see the forearm. Rib cage. That's where using the side of the pencil comes in handy for mark making. A little stronger on the outside. There's muscles and contours on the inside that I want to use more of the angle of the pencil for. Where I want to make some emphasis, I can go back to the point. Okay, there's my greater trochanter, that's the midpoint, midway, belly. Calf. Foot. And tiptoe again. Let's wrap this one up. Knee. Calf to the ankle. Foot. Okay, so at this point I really did need my ear right at the beginning, so I made that part of my drawing because I knew that I wanted to balance it, and I knew that I couldn't see the midpoint, the midway point, because I'm not seeing the front view. Midway point meaning the manubrium of the sternum, the pit of the neck. So use the front of the ear, okay? So what are you going to do when he's facing forward and you can't see the middle of his neck? Well, this is actually pretty easy because you should be able to see right through a back view and see pretty much where that midline's going to be. So I'm just looking directly through him, and I can pretty much figure out that midline is right through the middle of his neck, straight down, vertically down, and then I'm going to see what it falls through. And that falls through just a little bit more of this cheek, the left cheek, than the right cheek, and straight through his spine, and all the way down to the ground. Doesn't really touch any other structures except at the very bottom I see his right ankle. Okay, so then I can go ahead and keep working on my gesture. Here's my egg, my upper egg. Lower egg. Nice bit of an angle to it. Nice crease right there. Now because he's pulled his hip over on this one, remember my line came through on the left side, straight through that butt, but this one is pushing it way out to the side. So that's where you can really see the midpoint, the greater trochanter right there. Okay, so his leg's going to come back toward the center line. There, and he's going to bring that other leg out. Knees are about the same length. This one's a little bit shorter maybe. Come back, slight angle. And he's pushing this hip in. And calf. Foot. We're not going to go into detail on that. Calf muscle. There. Come back into the form. So we've got this beautiful back muscle here. All along the spine. Scapula. Soft edge of the pencil for that muscle under the scapula. Back to the arm, shoulder, deltoid muscle, contour of trapezius. Okay. A little bit of overlap. Notice where the wrist comes just a little bit above that crease. Okay. Elbow. Straight out to the wide hand. That's good for now. Finish it off here. Okay. All right, so that's how you're going to balance a figure when you can't see the manubrium of the sternum, the pit of the neck. You can look straight through it. Okay.